everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. So we are in chapter 49. This is 49b. This one is called Tool. הללו את אדוני כל גויים, שבחו כל האומים, כי גבר עלינו חסדו ואמת אדוני לעולם. Hallelujah. Rabbi Pinchas says, the Holy One, blessed be he, saw that from the lineage of Agag would arise a man who is a great oppressor and an enemy of the Jews. We know who that is, right? The description is taken from Esther 7:6. And Esther said, an adversary and an enemy. This evil Haman, and Haman became terrified before the king and the queen. Vatomar Esther ish tsar ve'oyev. These are the things, like we said, ish tsar ve'oyev. The two descriptions. You recall we spoke several weeks ago how God categorized the two nations of Edom and Ishmael and what they would do to Israel, not only from the birth of Esav and Ishmael, but also throughout history and particularly at the end times, So, tsar, tzorer, oppressor, is spoken of Edom, which is the Christian world. Again, this is not Christians. This is the Christian world, the institution, the lies of the Western world, essentially. And Oyev, enemy, is spoken of Ishmael, which is the Muslim world. Both have killed millions of Jews throughout history. And mind you, here we have yet another example of history repeating itself, and yet people seem to be cheering, unaware of the inevitable. How did Rome, Edom, get involved with Israel to begin with, way back when? King Agrippa, during the Second Temple, invited Rome, Edom, the Western world, see what I'm saying, to settle an internal conflict, one that we could not do on our own. So back then, like today, Israel, Judah were divided. So we called in the big and powerful Rome, whose color is red, Adom, obsessed with blood, and particularly the blood of their dead Messiah. Not then, but we just know a few hundred years later, that's Rome, became the Roman Catholic Church, and there Christianity was born, and today they all read the same propaganda that came out of there. Fact. So, is the U.S. going to take over Gaza? Everyone knows that the moment that you invite a blood-sucking vampire into your house, you're done. So, a stiff-necked people until the very end, I suppose. Anyway, Amalek, not only by blood, because Esav married the daughter of Ishmael, thereby combining the two worst of the worst nations on earth, but the spirit resides amongst them as well, the spirit of Amalek, which is why Haman is titled as the oppressor, Edom, as well as the enemy, Ishmael, Tsar ve'oyev. And so, our text continues and says, who is this man but Haman the wicked, as said in Esther 9:24? For Haman the son of Hamdata, the Agagite, right, from Agag, the adversary of all the Jews, had advised to destroy the Jews, and he cast the poor, as in the pool, pei vavresh, not the poor and needy, right? That is the lot to terrify them and to destroy them. So we see, going back to the last two teachings, that Haman, the Agagite, is a direct descendant of Agag, the king of Amalek, who was shown mercy by Saul and the people. And like we said way back when in those three teachings of Amalek, so do our sages, right? When you show mercy to the wicked, you will eventually show mercy to take away mercy from those who actually deserve mercy. So in other words, you're going to be cruel to those who actually need that mercy. And so we see also later on, Saul slaughtered all the priests of Israel, right? What happened? You never show Amalek or any of your enemies that want to destroy you mercy. Guess what's coming? Guess why this happened? Because we have shown them mercy over the course of the years. So, it's biblical. Okay, anyway, like we said, God always gives us opportunities to rectify that which we corrupted. Saul was the son of Kish, correct? So now this has to come back full circle. This is a tikkun. If we don't do it, then our children and our children's children, all the way until the very end. And from the seed of Saul, a redeemer, a revenger for the Jews from the hands of Haman. And who is this but Mordechai, the Jew? As said in Esther 2:5, there was a Judean man in Shushan, the capital, whose name was Mordechai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, a Benjaminite. So even though he was from the tribe of Benjamin, again, Judea was taken captured. This is why we are called Jews today. And no one knows what tribe they're from exactly until the time of Mashiach, when he will let us know. Regarding our opening statement, where we read that Rabbi Pinchas says, the Holy and Blessed be he, saw from the lineage of Agag would rise a man who was a great oppressor and an enemy of the Jews, the Radal presents something that we should always remember. If God saw that Haman would rise because Saul did not complete his mission, we must understand from this that regardless of if Saul would have completed his mission, Haman would have risen. This is true across the board, right? Meaning everything happened exactly how it was supposed to happen, as God laid out all of the reality according to the choices of men. Everything. For instance, we've learned that because Abraham used 4 words to ask God how would he recognize his promise? Not even doubting God for an instant, right? As the Torah tells us in Genesis 15:16, and he believed God, ve'emin b'Hashem, he believed in God, and he accredited to him as righteousness. So right there, 2 verses before, it already says Abraham had complete faith in God in everything that he says. But he says, how will I know? Look what it says in Genesis 15:8, when he says, I'm going to give you the promise of children in this land and eternity, right? He says, Vayomer Adonai Elohim, bameh eda ki arishena. Oh Lord God, how will I know that I will inherit? In other words, how will I know this? He's not doubting God at all, but because of those 4 words, Israel received 400 years. But we also know that it was the plan all along, as Israel had to descend to Egypt to shed the klipot and to bring out the sparks. This is the plan basically throughout our years. And this was the only way that Israel could receive the Torah as a mighty nation, not just as 70 individuals, but an entire nation, numbering at 600,000 plus, which only could have been done from the iron furnace, which was Egypt. Another example of how we got to the right spot on Temple Mount. We've already been through this as well. When David decided to number the children of Israel, bringing about a plague and much death, though all the dead were in fact the heir of Rav that needed to be cleared out. Through this, David saw Satan standing over Temple Mount with his sword drawn, pointing exactly at the spot where the temple would stand. So in other words, David's trip up is what caused the temple to actually be built. Abraham's how will I know this, caused Israel to descend to Egypt, but to later then receive the Torah. You see what I'm saying? All these things had to take place. God creates opportunities for us that are not single serving. In other words, okay, that is for that. No, there's so much more behind it. This is why we learn about it. 70 faces of the Torah. Everything is so layered and everything is connected and intertwined from the beginning of time to the end. It makes sense to God. We don't understand. That's why, again, if we look at something that goes down, is that, oh, that's terrible. How could God do this? But if we take a step back, remember, going back to the 6 days of creation, and the 6 days God said, Tov Me'od, the 6 days of creation are the 6,000 years of our world. And all of reality, all the angels said, it is very good. So no matter how bad it seems, it's all part of a much bigger picture that we do not understand. But we can see because we're almost at the very end of it. So Israel were supposed to be elevated to Adam before the sin at Mount Sinai. But then the heir of Rav caused the golden calf and everything fell apart. Or did it? If that would have happened, how could Mashiach ben David come into play? You see, if they would have been redeemed already in Midbar Sinai, in the Sinai desert, by Mount Sinai, then where is the concept of Mashiach, right? Where's the building of the temple? All these things had to take place. Whose spirit existed before the world was? That's why this had to take place, because that spirit had to come into the world. So again, no matter what would have happened. If not in this way, then in another way. Oh, and again, the proof of this is also the 70 years of David. David is called Mashiach Hashem. His 70 years were given by Adam, who saw until the end of time. He said, who is this? I see a star, but then his light just burns out. And God says, this is David, the sweet singer of Zion, who was supposed to be born and die on the same day. Adam said, no, give him 70 of my years, taking away from his, 1,000-year lifespan over there. So already from the beginning, we knew that this had to take place. So the Purim story, right? The Purim story, which is the closest scroll we have to pull from regarding not only the state of Israel before the final redemption, like we said, the final redemption is actually going to look like the Purim story, with everything is going to flip on its head, as we've learned about, but also the state of the world to come. If King Saul had succeeded in his mission, we wouldn't have had any of that. In other words, he didn't succeed in his mission. God knew he would not succeed in his mission. He wanted him to succeed in his mission. He had an opportunity to do so, but it wasn't that God took away Saul's opportunity. God knew that Saul would not see it through, and that's why these things continued. But everything was laid out according to the choices of man. Like we said, success and failure has nothing to do with us, but with God, only with God. And all we have is the effort that we put in. Your choices. We make choices. Your surroundings, the people that God puts before you, your friends, your family, everything that is going on in your life is a tikkun for you to do where you are at. And if we look at the text itself in Samuel, which we will, Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer is going to show us that Samuel already saw right then and there what would happen. And prophecy is timeless. So look what it says. And there Samuel stood, praying and saying, Master of all the worlds, do not forget the tzara, the trouble, the oppression, the affliction of Esav the wicked, for what he did to his father, as in literal father, Isaac, Yitzchak, as he took foreign wives who gave offering and incense to idolatry, to embitter the lives of his forefathers, as said in Genesis 26:34-35. And Esav was 40 years old, and he married Judith, the daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basmat, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a vexation of the spirit to Isaac and to Rebekah. God doesn't care who you are, even the very children of Isaac and Rebekah, but you do not mess with his people. You don't mess with Isaac or Rebekah, for goodness sakes. Remember his iniquity upon his children and his children's children until the end of all the generations. This is what Samuel prayed regarding Amalek, regarding Esav, because Amalek comes from Esav. Now, PDE gives us a quote from Psalms 109, which you should definitely read so you know how David was praying against the wicked Edom. Let's read a few verses so we can see. Verse 2. For the mouth of the wicked man and the mouth of a deceitful man have opened upon me. They spoke with me with a lying tongue. Esav, the wicked. And with words of hatred they have surrounded me, and they have fought with me without cause. Look at Jacob and Esav. Jacob just like, dude, you go your way, I'll go mine. You take all the money, take everything. I just want the land. Leave me poor. No problem. Instead of my love, they persecuted me. But I am at prayer, va'ani tefillah, because David knew that it was not by might nor by power that he would defeat his enemies. Verse 5, they have imposed upon me evil instead of good and hatred instead of my love. How many times do we try and make peace with our enemies? That just doesn't work. Set a wicked man over him and let an adversary stand at his right hand. The very guardian angel of Esav, Edom, Rome, Christianity is Satan himself, as we've learned. May his sons be orphans and his wife a widow. May his sons wonder and people should ask and search from their ruins. May a creditor search out all that he has, and may strangers despoil his labor. May he have none who extends kindness, and may no one be gracious to his orphans. What, does this seem harsh? We're not supposed to take pity on this kind of wicked. Like we said, you are not supposed to take pity on the wicked, especially not when God gives the command to wipe them out. May his end be to be cut off. In another generation, may their name be blotted out. Whose name has to be blotted out? This is Amalek, right? Yimach Shemam. This is what we say. Yimach Shemam to the what do you call it? The Hamas and Hezbollah. Anybody that tries to vex us. To the Yimach Shemam, we say. This is also how we refer to Jebus, right? We call him Yeshu, Yud Shin Vav. Yimach Shemo Vezichro. May his name and memory be blotted out. And it will be. A virgin birth, you say. May the iniquity against his forefathers be remembered by the Lord, and may the sin against his mother not be erased. Why his mother? Are we talking about Esav? Who are we talking about? Because Esav's mother was Rivka, Tzadikah, right? No. May the sin against his mother not be erased. Enough said. May they be before the Lord constantly, and may he cut off their remembrance from the earth, Amalek. Because he did not remember to do kindness, and he pursued a poor and needy man and a broken-hearted one to kill him. Missionaries are known for preying on the weak and the broken, still till this very day. And he loved a curse, and it came upon him. And he did not desire a blessing, and it distanced itself from him. And he donned a curse like his garment, and it came into his midst like water, and into his bones like oil. May it be to him as a garment with which he envelops himself, and as a girdle with which he constantly girds himself. This is the recompense of my adversaries. Kazot peulat Sotanai me'et Adonai ve'advarim ra al nafshi, of my adversaries from the Lord, and those who speak evil upon my soul. Says David, Melech HaMashiach. So there's more, obviously, to this psalm, but you can see it clearly, and soon enough, so will others. So back to the prayer of Samuel, who prayed against Amalek, from the seed of Esav, who is Edom, who is Rome, who is the Christian and Western world. And Samuel heard the voice of Agag whispering from his mouth, saying, the bitterness of death has turned from me. Meaning, he thought he was saved. Like, oh, well, okay, no problem. I'm still alive. As said in 1 Samuel 15:32. And Samuel said, bring Agag, the king of Amalek, near to me. And Agag went to him directly, and Agag said, surely the bitterness of death has turned. So we can ask, how did Samuel hear the whisper of Agag throughout all this commotion from whatever holding cell he was at the time, or even if he was standing next to him? There was a crowd. The entire army came back from battle. All the people came to greet them. There was the sheep and the goats and the bulls all making noises, all the things that God said get rid of, and yet they were not rid of them. So first of all, it wasn't a whisper at all. Agag never even opened his mouth. He was thinking it. So do not forget who Samuel was. Like, how could this happen? Don't forget Samuel, right? And his connection to God. He was acutely aware of his surroundings and was pretty much limited by nothing. Look at what he said as a result from 1 Samuel 15:33. And Samuel said, and by the way, if you don't know this, Samuel died young. He died at age 52. 52 is Gematria Ben, son. Just like Solomon also died at the age of 52. And he was very much broken when he saw that Saul was defying God. Saul was like his guy. Yes, he anointed David, of course. But the first king of Israel was Saul, and Samuel was the first prophet to anoint a king. This is a big deal. And when he saw him go off the derech, it broke him. He felt a connection to him. It tore him down. So 1 Samuel 15:33, and Samuel said, as your sword bereaved women, he said this to Agag, so will your mother, be bereaved among women. And Samuel hewed Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. So this word, shikla, I'm going to read it in Hebrew, Vayomer Shmuel kasher shikla nashim charbecha, as your sword bereaved women. So it's actually, it's a good translation, okay, for a change. Shikla shakul, this is how we refer specifically to someone who is mourning their recently deceased loved ones, right? So, yes, bereaved indeed. Also, as it's written in Exodus 24:26, there will be no bereaved or barren women in your land. I will fill the number of your days. Exodus 24:26. Or Isaiah 49:21, and you shall say to yourself, who begot these for me? Seeing that I am bereaved and solitary, exiled and rejected, and who raised these? Behold, I was left alone. These, from where are they? Why did Samuel put this, as your sword bereaved women, so will your mother be bereaved among women, on the head of Agag? Because the living who lost someone always have it worse than the person who died. You don't even understand what's going on in Israel right now, okay? The skeletons that they're bringing back with a heartbeat from Gaza, but there's nothing in... women are being bereaved even while their loved ones are somewhat still alive. Anyway, so like we said, the living always have it so much worse than those who died, those who got murdered. They're done. Their trials are done. They got killed because they were Jews. They're in the highest of heavenly realms. The families that they left behind are the ones that are broken and suffering. So that's why he put that on his head. All right? Second, and this is the most telling of it all, if Samuel was speaking to Agag regarding his own mother, clearly she wasn't alive because they killed everyone except for him, right? So that's not even relevant. So we gather that he is speaking of his descendants. Right then and there, Samuel killed him. You want to tell me Samuel knew that this guy managed to impregnate a woman while he was in a holding cell? Obviously he did. And that's why he laid that curse upon him. Also, we could see it when, we're going to see over here, when Joshua was actually fighting Amalek. Ki yad al kesya. What is yad al kesya? The hand is on kes. Kes is slow for kiseh. You're missing an aleph and ya. Where's the other vav and the hey? God is saying, my throne will not be complete, nor my name be complete, until Amalek will be completely removed, and any remnants from them. Again, Amalek is, let's say, the leaf at the end of the branch that is Esav, that is Edom, that is Rome. You see that? So they're all connected. Everything is going. He saw everything Samuel did. He knew it all. He was the equivalent of both Moses and Aaron in his time. And that's why it hurt him so much that Saul had failed. He truly loved him, right? It's like, not only, what a disappointment, heartbroken. You are me, I am you. That's the true spirit of Israel. He continued to curse Agag, saying, and just as the sword of Amalek had killed the elderly and the young men of Israel from beyond the cloud, what do we learn from the Exodus? What is beyond the cloud? Israel were in the clouds of glory, right? Those that chose to go outside of the cloud. In other words, you can only move with the cloud if you kept to God's commands, right? If you relax, the cloud moves and it leaves you behind, hence beyond the cloud, okay? Bereaving their wives, leaving them widows, so too may your mother be bereaved more than all women. That's right. So we're the ones, I guess, that started talking smack about other people's mothers. Like we read in Psalms 109:14. Yo mama so wicked, may the sin against yo mama not be erased. Oh, snap. Now, what did this event lead to? The time of Esther and Mordecai. And when Esther and her handmaids prayed, all the sons of Amalek were killed and bereaved. As said by Samuel, as your sword bereaved women, so too will your mother be bereaved among women. In Esther chapter 9, it says this, verse 5, and the Jews smote all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, and with slaying and destruction, and they did to their enemies as they wished. The 10 sons of Haman, the son of Hamdata, the adversary of the Jews, they slew. But on the spoil they did not lay their hands. So, what's the connection? You cannot separate Israel, okay? We are all connected. as we are here because of the merit of those who came before us. And that's why if we think that we're going to break out and break free of what was, we are walking off cliffs. We have to stay on the road. We have to stay on the straight and narrow, quite literally, otherwise we're done. As you can see, at the end of the day, God promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob an eternal covenant with their children Israel. So if we don't even attempt to live like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, what, we think we're just going to benefit and not get any of the negatives that come from that, shunning our responsibility? That's not going to work. So they started the work, but we have to finish it, and quite literally finish it nowadays, right? It says in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Fathers, 2:16, Rabbi Tarfon used to say, "It is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it." So, what, you think they did not know 2,000 years ago that they would not see the coming of Mashiach? They knew this. Jacob knew this. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai knew this. Rabbi Akiva knew this. They all died over there hoping, waiting, yearning, but also knowing that it wasn't in their generation. But did that stop them from being awesome? No. It was because Samuel prayed at that point in time and then slicing Agag that weakened Amalek in the future. You see, you always need prayer together with action. Always, across the board. And where was the first time that we saw this, specifically regarding Amalek? We just read about it. Exodus 17. Amalek came and fought with Israel in Rephidim. So Moses said to Joshua, "Pick men for us and go out and fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand up on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand." Joshua did as Moses had told him to fight against Amalek. And by the way, why does it say tomorrow? Why not today? Why not right now? So our sages actually says, very interesting. I know this because I was just studying this parsha. So, basically, there are auspicious times. There are auspicious days. There are days that are days of mercy. There are days that are days of judgment. For instance, they don't know this in the Christian world. Like, yeah, we fast on Mondays and Thursdays. Why? You don't know. Of course not. Why do we open up the Torah scrolls and read the Torah on Monday and Thursday? Because it goes according to the Sfirot. Meaning Sunday is chesed. Monday is gvura, right? What is gvura? It is judgment. So on a day of judgment, those are the days that you fast. Those are the days that you open up the Torah scroll to remind God, look, we're doing our best right here. Then you have Tuesday, which is Tiferet. That's a great day. That's in the middle. It's balanced. You have Wednesday, which is Netzach, also on the right side, the side of mercy. And then you have Thursday, which is Hod, also on the left side, the side of judgment. See what I'm saying? You need to know these things. They knew these things. So did Amalek. That's probably why they attacked him on the day that they did. Moses is like, okay, tomorrow we're going to get this done. And in fact, they did. Joshua did as Moses told him to fight against Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur ascended to the top of the hill. Also, Moses in the middle, Aaron on the right, mercy, Hur on the left, judgment, creating that balance. It came to pass that when Moses would raise his hand, Israel would prevail, and when he would lay down his hand, Amalek would prevail. Here's something else very, very interesting that I learned. Amalek, like you're going to see, we need them until the end of time. Moses, his job right then and there was to allow Joshua just to weaken Amalek and not destroy them. So Moses, right, mercy, judgment. Moses had to make a perfect balance over there just to leave them alive long enough in order to bring Israel to tshuva, like we will see in later generations. They serve a purpose, hence yad al kesya, according to God. So now Moses' hands were heavy, so they took a stone and placed it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one from this side, one from that side, and so was his hands in faith until sunset. By the way, the miracle that we see in Joshua, what is it? Joshua 1:10? No, not 1:10. I forgot. Shemesh begivon, I think it's chapter 10. Shemesh begivon dom ve'yareach be'emek alon kakatuv b'sefer hayashar, right, as is written in the book of Jasher. When Joshua stopped the sun and the moon, that was not the first time it was done. First time it was done was right here by Moses, and we also know this. Why? Because it says, ad ba hashemesh, until the sun came. In other words, they extended, God froze the sun and the moon in the sky until that damage that needed to be done would be done. God again later on did it for Joshua's sake until the Amorite kings were taken out and they needed help. Why? So what happened? The what do you call it? The hailstones with the fire in them that started coming down in Egypt that were stopped early. The remnants of those were what dropped on the Amorite kings. You could also read it there in the Pshat. It's very interesting. The whole fire and brimstone and hailstones that came down, they killed most of the Amorite kings. Fascinating stuff. Okay, so let us continue. Joshua weakened Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. The Lord said to Moses, inscribe this as a memorial in the book. Love this. And recite it into Joshua's ears that I will surely obliterate the remembrance of Amalek from beneath the heavens. Sorry, I forgot the whole thing because I'm going off right now. Just all these things are popping up. In the end, when we learned about the death of Moses, when he's actually speaking to Satan, he goes, dude, you know who I am? You know what I did? I stopped the sun and the moon in the sky. I'm like, wait, where did that happen? Then you learn like, oh, it was right here. That's where that happened. Okay. Right. So you see, it started with Moses praying, Joshua fighting. You need to pray and you need to fight. You don't just sit down. Okay. And this was written in the book of memorial, Zikaron Basefer. Zikaron Liskor, Sefer, book. And after Esther and her handmaidens prayed, in fact, all of Israel were fasting and praying at that time from Esther 5:15 and 16. It says, then Esther ordered Mordecai to reply to Mordecai, go assemble all the Jews who are present in Shushan and fast on my behalf, and neither eat nor drink for 3 days. Day and night also I and my maidens will fast in a like manner. Then I will go to the king contrary to the law, and if I perish, I perish. We can see the book of memorial come once again into play over here in Esther 6:1. On that night, the king's sleep was disturbed, and he ordered to bring the book of the records, the chronicles, and they were read before the king. What does it say? What's the terminology in Hebrew? We said zikaron basefer, besefer hazichronot, in the book of zichronot, memories, right? Memoriam. Balayla hu nadida shnat hamelech vayomer lavi et Sefer HaZichronot, translated as the Book of Records, but it is the Book of Remembrances, Divrei Hayamim, the Chronicles, Ve'u Nikraim Lifnei HaMelech, and wherever we see HaMelech and not HaMelech HaChashverosh, in the Book of Esther, we know that that is specifically an allusion towards God himself. So what we see here is that everything always starts with prayer and then action. Who are the guys that Joshua chose to go fight? Who were the warriors of Israel back then? Like we said, it wasn't the guys who were with the biggest muscles and knew how to swing a sword. It was the guys who were dedicated to Torah study. You just need to be present. Grab onto that sword for dear life, and that sword is going to move for you. Just like we learned when it came to the Hasmoneans. You're talking about a bunch of 80-year-old priests? Priests, not warriors, who were repelling the Greek army? Really? So we learned that they just held on to the swords, and the swords were fighting for them and doing incredible things. Okay? So that's how this works. How was David such a mighty man of battle? It said one arrow would kill 1,000. 1,000, one arrow. And then afterwards, after there was a question what he did, it dropped down to 800. And he's like, oh no, what is wrong? I only killed 800 with one arrow. It's like that guy Yandu, right, from Guardians of the Galaxy. The one arrow just starts spinning all the way around. Jacob did the same thing. You could read about this in the book of Jasher. Fascinating stuff. Not by might nor by power. It is not ours, but we still need to be present. We still need to do the hishtadlut. We don't just sit down like, God will take care of him easily. He can, but don't you want to participate? You know, that's the whole point. So, prayer and action. So we can see we can see that we can't just, sit on our butts thinking that everything had already been done for us, but rather we need to combine the spiritual with the physical and pray for God to grant us success in our endeavors, especially when they coincide with his direct commands. In this case, the destruction of Amalek. So let's wrap this up. And the prayer of Samuel broke the might of the sons of Agag from Israel in the Gilgal, as said in 1 Samuel 15:33. And Samuel said, "As your sword bereaved women, so will your mother be bereaved among women." And Samuel hewed Agag in pieces before the Lord in Gilgal. Vayeshasif, that's the word that was used for hewed, right? The Radal says that this is indicative, in fact, of breaking, meaning breaking that strength of Amalek, breaking them further. So Amalek was severely weakened. So let's say they were taken down from 100% down to 10% in the battles of Joshua. And then again over here, down from 10% to, let's say, 1% with Saul. And so we were facing that 1% still over there in Purim time. But what happened in Purim time? We're going to see. All right? So we need to ask ourselves, if Amalek are so bad, why would God allow them to still be around? And we answered this question earlier. So the answer is very clear. They are effective. The first time they came about was because of us. Exodus 17:2-3. So the people quarreled with Moses and they said, "Give us water that we may drink." Moses said to them, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you test the Lord?" The people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses, and they said, "Why have you brought us up from Egypt to make me and my children and my livestock die of thirst?" So again, wherever we see Vaitzma Sham Ha'am, wherever we see Ha'am, that is the Erev Rav. This was not Israel that was doing this, but the Erev Rav, and this is the problem. So this happened shortly after the greatest miracle in the history of the world that took place, right? The splitting of the sea. So, is God not going to take care of his people when they are thirsty? Of course he is, as we see in verse 6. "Behold, I shall stand there before you on the rock in Chorev, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, and the people will drink." And so did Moses before the eyes of the elders of Israel. But given their state and that which they just experienced, how then could they turn and accuse God of what they did? Again, it is the Erev Rav amongst Israel that did this, and they brought all of Israel down with them. Still happening. The direct result of that, what happened? 2 verses later, Amalek came and fought with Israel and Rephidim. Okay, so that's what's going on. We need a little bit of a pick-me-up right now. Amalek represents the ugliest and most despicable of nations, a perfect match to our behavior, to what was going on over there. But because this happened back then, Joshua weakened Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. What happened right after that terrible calamity? They received the Torah. Boom, they went from there to there. Okay, here we go. In other words, that final tikkun that they needed was actually because of Amalek. Because what else would have to happen for them to be able to purify themselves? Remember, we cannot do true tshuva on our own. We can do our best, but to get that final squeezing of the juice out of us, that's really what God is looking for, right? God helps us through the nations, and particularly through Amalek. But clearly, they were still not done, meaning God still has a purpose for Amalek. Fast forward to the time of Saul. Though he did not completely destroy them, he also chipped away at their power, but still, God had a purpose for them. Fast forward to the return, or lack thereof, to Zion to build the second temple. What could have been the final redemption back then? This endeavor was doomed before it even began. Less than 4% of the Jews returned, and also many had taken foreign wives. The Samaritans slowed us down. Cyrus retracted his offer, and Haman and the Amalekites rose to power to remind the Jews who they are, or rather, who they are not. We are not part of the nations. We are a nation that stands alone. As a result, from Esther 8:17, and in every province and in every city, wherever the king's orders and his edict reached, there was joy and gladness for the Jews, a banquet and festive day, and many of the peoples of the land became Jews, because the fear of the Jews was upon them. All of Israel did tshuva and were saved. That's why we were saved, because all of us did tshuva, like we've learned in the Calling All Jews series. It is only through this. only through everyone doing complete tshuva that we will be saved. And that's why God brings these things about, right? But even more Erev Rav would join Israel as a result. Mityahadim, it doesn't mean becoming Jews. Mityahadim, it doesn't say hitgayru, lehitgayer, to convert. Mityahadim, outwardly to become Jews. Rather, they outwardly took upon themselves to look like Jews, changing their names from whatever to Moishi, I don't know, doing Jewish things, very Jewy of them. But inside, they remained with their idolatry. Sounds like Messianics to me. But God was still not done with Amalek, as they still served a purpose. In 1933, the Nazi Party rose to power as some of the more intelligent rabbis were warning the Jewish communities in Europe of what was to come from their gracious hosts, yes, but they wouldn't listen. As a result, we lost way upwards of 7 million, but the chain of events led to the modern state of Israel. Who knows? I know, come on. Though it was part of their final solution plan, as we discussed in great detail in the Truth About Zionism teaching. Fast forward to 2023, when the left in Israel were protecting and burning our streets every Shabbat. Oh, thanks, US aid. Now we know exactly where this is coming from. We know. They were burning our streets every Shabbat in the most disgusting way, culminating at Yom Kippur, when the Erev Rav revealed themselves within our ranks. And the result? The Amalekites crossed the fence, allowed to cross the fence, right, into our borders, and murder, mutilate, torture, rape, pillage, and kidnap our people for up to 12 hours, uninterrupted. How sweet. Amalek from within and Amalek from without working together to maximize the effort. And what did this lead to? What was the direct result of this? Deals with them, humanitarian aid, releasing them to kill again, not in Gaza, in Judea and Samaria, and so on. You see, you guys don't seem to see what is going on over here, okay? 20 years ago, our government removed Jews from Gush Katif, removed them, plucked up Jews from the land of Israel for the sake of Gazans, for the sake of Amalek. They burnt everything that we left for them. These people have still not been settled, by the way. And then firing rockets, we have been giving them cement. U.S. taxpayer dollars has been giving them cement and all this money and everything. So they build up the Gaza that we see today. 20 years later, now we have almost 1,000 soldiers being killed in Gaza, over 20,000 wounded, over 100 kidnapped, only to what now? Build a Mar-a-Lago on there? No one is seeing what is happening over here. Okay, you will. Anyway, did we learn anything from Amalek? Clearly not, because all that happened. So, is God done with them yet? Obviously not, because we have yet to obliterate them. So, what is coming next? Well, back to the Purim story, right? As only under the fear of certain death will all the true Jews do tshuva. So, who is Amalek at the end of the day? Like everything else, and like everyone else in God's world, they are just a tool for our benefit. They serve a purpose and will continue to do so until we get it right. So pray that it happens sooner rather than later. Truth is, I'm really excited to see what's going to come. Anyway, that's our class. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye.